Hey guys, it's GHP here, and welcome back to our third batch of spoiler review. The most notable thing about this, we'll call it session or batch or whatever we want to call it, is they have announced what Nightfall is going to be. Instead of just sticking it on cards, we don't know what it does. So Nightfall, they give it in a better explanation than what they're already giving us, because I think it's kind of unclear. From what I'm gathering, is Nightfall you trigger, and then for each player will get a turn of night. So night means at the start of your turn, take one damage, draw a card, draw an additional card, which is really interesting to me. I think it's a cool mechanic, but I think it's a very aggressive mechanic because it's going. You have it, you trigger your effect, you pass the turn. It happens for your opponent once, so your opponent gets this effect first. Then it's your turn, you get this effect, and then on your opponent's next turn, it becomes daylight again. And every time someone plays a Nightfall card, that triggers again. Which I think is cool. The one thing about this, though, is I think this has to be a mechanic that is played aggressively. I don't think a control deck wants to do this effect too often, plus I don't think the cards they've announced so far lean this way, unless they print something that's just so good that control decks want to play it. But I see this as an aggressive mechanic because then the cards you're giving your opponent are probably less important than the extra cards you're giving yourself, because your opponent may not be able to actually end the game in time, or at least use those cards efficiently enough to deal with it. Now, of course, if you're playing a deck that your opponent needs a harsh rule and they just, oh, there's that extra card and it's harsh rule, that feels shitty. But it is what it is. So let's take a look at the cards for today. First one is a Felon Legendary, which I think is really cool. So it's a 4-mana 5/5, which you've seen Impending Doom is going to be a decent comparison. And Midnight Gale when it comes to casting cost. So it's 4 mana for a double primal, double shadow card, which is difficult to cast. But you get a 5/5 for 4, which is pretty good. So we look at Sandstorm Titan. Summon Nightfall. So we have the effect. So for one turn, Rendra has Lifesteal and Overwhelm at night. So Overwhelm I don't think is an overly powerful mechanic unless you are using it on like combat tricks like Rampage. Normally it is only good on very aggressive creatures. It's only not overly relevant otherwise, unless you have an absurdly static card like in draft Plated Goliath. Having 7 attack and Overwhelm is really notable, or Adaptive Predator being 8. But in Constructed, the effect of Overwhelm is minimal. It's nice, of course, and there are some games it just wins for you. But so does Flying, Unblockable, and a lot of other things, and probably more often than Overwhelm. But it does get Lifesteal, and Lifesteal is a solid mechanic to have. So if we evaluate this for one turn, it's a 4-mana 5/5 with Lifesteal and Overwhelm. That on your opponent's turn they lose a life, draw a card, and on your turn you draw a card and lose a life. That's pretty okay. So I think this card is playable. I think this card can, if it's going to see play though, goes into an aggressive Felon tempo deck, but this is like a curved top. I don't think I ever want to go bigger, and I don't think I ever want to play a Champion of Cunning with this card, or go that direction. I could be wrong. I could be evaluating Nightfall very poorly. But, for example, if we look at a Felon mid-range list, like I was playing for a long time on stream, I don't think this card really fits in. Yeah, it's powerful, but it doesn't get through cards like Sandstorm Titan. It's hard to cast, and I don't know, I just don't think the effect is that good on this card. I also don't think the additional Lifesteal Overwhelm is that relevant. Sure, Lifesteal is always going to be okay. Sure, Overwhelm is always going to be okay, but it's not the most notable keywords. It's not the most relevant thing in the world to have those effects. Like, if this was Lifesteal Flying, I think this card is quite good. That's a really nice effect, because then you also don't lose the life, so to say, unless you can't attack. It also makes it be able to block, but so does the nice thing about this is the turn you play it, yeah, your opponent drew a card extra, So if they kill it, it sucks. But it has lifesteal. So your opponent attacking into this is kind of difficult. So I think if they're going to, like, if you want to play this as a curve top, I think this card's quite solid. And I think it's going to see some play. I just don't think it's going to see play in a control show. I think this is a mid-range slash aggro type of mechanic, and I think this card suits that perfectly. But I do think this card's really cool. Darkveil Agent, 2/2 for 2. 7 Nightfall. When you start your turn at night, your Unseen get Aegis. So your Unseen is a new tribe. That's interesting. 2/2s for 2 are kind of bad. How does a 2/2 for 2 that pings both players and draws both player cards sound though? Because I don't think the second half of the effect is that relevant. Or, well, it's get Aegis, not get Aegis until a certain time. So, like, if you play this and your Unseen are, you know, something that your opponent's going to need to kill, it's a pretty powerful effect. I actually think this card's pretty good in an Unseen style deck. I don't think this card is that good otherwise, and I don't think it's good in a Nightfall theme deck, but I don't really know if that's going to exist. Unless we see some really busted Nightfall cards. Because, I mean, like, a 2/2 for 2 can only be so good a lot of the time, and I think when I'm comparing this to other 2/2s for 2, this doesn't match up. This is a 2-drop in Primal. That's relevant. We don't have many good ones. People play Scaly Gruon sometimes. And if you're in an aggressive Primal deck, this is like an aggressive Unseen Primal deck. This card's pretty good. I think this card could see some play depending on how good Nightfall is. I do really like the fact that this card exists, though. I think it's cool. Next card. Lunar Magus. Study. Alright. A little bit hard to cast, double time on 3. But 3-mana 2/4s, it's okay. 7 Nightfall, so this is really interesting because you gain 4 life at night, so your opponent gets the effect, and it actually is just draw a card, gain 3 life. So it's a 3-mana 2/4 that pings your opponent for 1. You gain 3 life, presuming this lives, and both players draw a card. That's pretty solid. I think this card's okay in a Nightfall themed deck. I don't think this card's that good by itself, but I think, like, for example, it's definitely going to make my draft deck most, if not every time, because I think it's quite good in that style. Whereas a decent value card, it's a 3-drop that gives you a 2/4 and cycles. That also cycles for your opponent, which is tough. But this card's not aggressive, and I don't think this card, like, makes a Nightfall control deck that good, because the 1 damage isn't that relevant. And I don't think gaining 4 life is that relevant. Life gain is an incremental thing where, like, incremental is definitely the wrong word. It's something that is only relevant until it wins you the game. It's not relevant until it wins you the game. Like, life gain only prevents you dying. It doesn't actually help you win the game, and that's why, for example, Water of Life is not a powerful card. And doesn't even see that much play in Xenon Life Force decks as an enabler. This card really is a 3-mana 2/4 that cycles, and in that case it's pretty solid. I think this card could see some play for sure, and I'm definitely going to want it in my draft decks, but I think this card is probably, if you're going to print cards that are not actually aggressive in Nightfall, this card's really good, in my opinion. Not like an A+, but I think it has the ability to definitely see some constructive play. Next card, and I believe our last card? No, 2 cards left. Alright, we'll do Cover of Darkness. 5-mana spells. What? No. Next card. This card's bad. This card's really bad. Yeah, it's a 5-mana spell that... Here's a thought. Is this card better than Cloud of Ash? Because most decks right now that would want this effect either have Crystallize or Cloud of Ash in their color scheme. I guess you could be playing like Xenon mid-range or something and want this. But 5 mana unblockable is not good, even if it's 2. And 5 mana, like, this card actually just feels like a Hail Mary style effect where you're gonna help your opponent actually get to your answers and stuff, and like, unless this one-shots somebody, then I don't see this card being good at all. 5 mana spell that's not overly impactful. Like, you draw this sometimes and you're just like, well shit, this does nothing. But if you compare other 5 mana spells like Obliterate, which can kill something or an opponent, or just, it's great tempo play, for example, or Crystallize, sometimes it wipes the enemy Jito's board, sometimes it wins you the game, sometimes it's just a fine value tool to stall the game, when maybe you're looking for that extra power or something. This does none of that. And I think the only thing this really does sometimes is win the game, which I guess it does something of. But I just think this card's really bad and not going to see any play at all. And the last one. So it's a 2 mana 3/2. That's fine already. When an enemy is cursed, specifically enemy, does that count as enemy minion or enemy player? I do not know. I suspect it is player. No, do note this is an unseen. So this mechanic is, this unseen tribe is leaning towards Fountain, which I'm okay with. So it's a 2 mana 3/2 on its worst day. At its best day, it's a 2 mana 4/3 that you can pay 5 to curse the enemy player with a relic, which we're gonna pull up here. So this body is already pretty solid, and this card has a lot of good text on it. It's a 2 mana card with upside. Let's rephrase that. It's a 2 mana card that has upside that's already well statted and easy to cast. That's not a very often thing. Here's the relic though. So you pay 5 to put a relic on the enemy player, and it triggers Nightfall, and at night, the enemy player will take 2 damage instead of 1. So the problem with this is if you don't have night going, it's not doing anything. So it's 5 mana, deal 2 damage, and both players draw a card, and you lose a life. That's the complicated long version of what this card does. Because of that, I have concerns that unless you're in a dedicated night deck, this card doesn't do anything. But if they are making, let's just say this unseen Nightfall Found deck is what they're trying to make here, maybe this works. Like that, the original card, which I'm gonna pull back up, is quite good. Like 2 mana 3/2s are fine. You get the quotation marks. It has upside and another upside. Like this card has nothing bad about it, and it's a 2-drop that, like, if you draw it late, isn't that bad because it cycles because of the relic you can put on your opponent. It also helps win the game with that relic sometimes. I think this card's really, really solid and probably maybe the best card we've seen. I think the Lunar, and I think Rindra's also okay. I think those are the cards, and even Darkveil Agent, like, for once is rude, but this is the first set of cards that I thought have had a lot of playables in it. I think Nightfall is not an overly great mechanic, personally, but I think depending on the quality of the cards they print, it could be a mechanic we see a fair bit of when set 3 comes out in competitive decks. I think Nightshade's quite good. I think this card's gonna see some play, and I think some people are gonna disagree with me, and that's fine. This card doesn't see play in like just a random aggro deck, in my opinion, but I think it sees enough play in a Nightfall deck, for example, or an Unseen deck, which is probably the same deck, presuming they print good quality cards up to that point. Now I want to check something before I end the video. Rindra is an Unseen, so this basically confirms it's a Found mechanic, or a Found tribe, which is cool. So it looks like we're getting a tribe for each of the original sets. Sorry, I don't know the magic terminology of ally versus enemy, but Found, Rakano, Elysian, the stuff that had support in set 1. Looks like we're getting a tribe maybe for each one of them, which is cool. Where Elysian, for example, is getting dinosaurs, and Rakano is getting outlaws, or gunslingers, sorry. And I think that's cool. I like stuff like that. I do think these cards are all pretty solid, except for Cover of Darkness. But overall, I think most of these cards are going to see some amount of play. Maybe they're all going to see play together. Except I don't think, for example, Lunar goes with Dark Village, just as an example. But I think a fair few of these cards, especially the found ones, are going to see a fair bit of play in one deck if they continue to print powerful Nightfall cards. Now I'm repeating myself a little bit here. Oops. So I want to stop the video here. I want to say thanks to everyone for tuning in for some more spoilers. And I will see you guys in probably 2 days with another 5 or 6 spoilers. See ya. So, I just realized there were spoilers the day before. And I remember why I forgot about them, because I think they're all pretty weak. But, let's add that into this video. We probably look really awkward by now, but let's talk about it. As for direction, so 2 mana Scry, when you attack with 2 or more units, or 2 or more explorers, not units, so that's awfully specific. Draw this card from your void. Alright, I'm gonna put this bluntly. Scry is not worth a card, let alone 2 mana. Attacking with 2 explorers is very difficult. Drawing this card over again is not good enough to make this card see any play. This card is a waste of a rare slot. I'm gonna be sad when I open it in draft. I think this card's really, really, really bad. And genuinely, maybe the worst card printed in this set so far. Let's just move on before I get tilted. Just staring at this card. Jump Kick. So, it's a 1 mana combat trick in Primal. That's good. We need one. Give a unit +1/+1 and flying. So, it's Levitate minus card draw plus some stats. This card's definitely going to see some draft play. I think it constructed, this card is not what you need. I think you don't really play combat tricks for the defensive reason besides protect. Which makes, to me, that just makes this card much worse than, than basically anything else you be doing. I don't think this card's going to see much constructed play, because this just isn't the type of combat trick you're currently looking for, I think. Maybe this card sees play in one style of deck, and that's an Infiltrate Felon style list. Because this card is another Levitate-like effect, and if you want to be in on the Infiltrate, you gotta work for it sometimes. And this might be better than some of your other options. I think this card's pretty good in draft. I think this card can see some constructed play, but it's gonna require a pretty specific deck that cares about infiltrating and getting in on your opponent on a specific turn. I don't think this card ever sees play in, say, Skycrag aggro, because that's just not the direction it wants to play. It wants to kill your units and hit you in the face, or it wants to pump its units, or it wants to be able to burn your face with it. It doesn't do any of that. So I don't think this card sees play in that deck, or anything like it, just like Infiltrate. What else do we have left? We have Yeti Sage. No. Just no. It's 2 mana 1/1. Double damage means it's a 2 mana 2/1 when it comes to combat right now. Entomb, draw a Trail Stories. A 0 cost card that decreases the cost of a spell by 1. That's not a good card, and I don't think I wanna, like, maybe you're playing some sort of ramp deck, maybe you're playing some sort of spells matters deck. That's where this card sees play, if it does, because it's an early blocker that also gets you a spell that helps ramp you into your win cons. So in that regards, it's pretty good. But most of the spells matters decks might want to play, for example, Temple Scribe, and I think Temple Scribe is better than this. I think Trail Stories is worse than the average card in your deck, and I don't think getting it for free off of this card is that good. I also definitely don't think this goes in like a Yeti themed deck. That's not what our Yeti cards are looking for. It's not spells cards. It's looking for good creatures, and that's what it's lacking a lot of the time. I don't think this card sees any play unless it goes into spells matter / ramp deck. But this card, right now, I don't think sees any play. And our last one. Oh, I don't like this card. I understand it's a mana sink, that when it comes down it could be a 6 mana 6/8, which is pretty good. But it's so bad when you don't have the Valkyrie. that I just don't see this card see much play. This is a bomb and draft for obvious reasons. But I think when you look at 6 meta cards that go in a Justice deck, you look at Martial Thor, Mystic Ascendant style cards. Even though Mystic Ascendant is in time, they're often paired together at that style of slot. And I don't think this could ever replace one of them. And even if I was in a Valkyrie deck, I don't know how good this card is because it's only 6 mana and it makes a couple of dudes for stats, but it doesn't actually do that much when it comes to impacting the like, how do I word this? It doesn't work towards winning the game too well. Now I do think the second effect of pay 6 and exhaust him to buff up to buff a unit by X, where X is equal to the amount of minions you control, is pretty okay. But then you're also tempo negative because you're spending your turn and exhausting this card to only buff something. It's not like Seraph where you're getting a creature. I don't think this card's very good. I know some people on Reddit said it was quite good, and I would like to be wrong. I like cards like this, but I personally don't think this is very good. So this is the part where I actually sign off the video correctly this time. Yep, you get 2 sign-offs in one video because I fucked up. That's how this is going to work today. So let's try this again. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in like 2 days for another like 10 spoilers since I can't count or remember yesterday's spoilers. Yep, this is going to be a long road of spoilers for me to do. See ya.